The call came 3 days before New Year's Eve while I was in a video conference with my Singapore office. I saw Mom's name flash on my phone and almost declined, but something made me answer. "Emma, I need to talk to you about New Year's." Her tone was the one she used when delivering news she expected me to accept without argument. "We're doing something different this year." I muted my laptop microphone. "Okay. Your brother Marcus has been invited to his boss's estate in the Hamptons. Jackson Reed, you've heard of him surely. The tech billionaire? Founded Nexus Systems. I'm familiar with Jackson Reed. Well, Marcus has been instrumental in their new AI division, and Mr. Reed is hosting a very exclusive New Year's Eve celebration. He told Marcus to bring family. But Emma, these are serious people. Billionaires, tech executives, venture capitalists. The kind of people who shape industries." I waited, already knowing where this was going. "So we think it's best if you sit this one out. Nothing personal, sweetheart, but you're in academia. These people operate in a different stratosphere. Marcus needs to make the right impression, and having his sister there, well, you understand. Someone might ask what you do, and I teach business ethics at a state university. Isn't exactly impressive enough," I finished. "I knew you'd understand. We'll do something with you in January. Maybe brunch." "Sure, Mom." "Marcus will be so relieved. He was worried about having to explain your career situation to people who've built billion-dollar companies. You know how he gets anxious about these things." The line went dead. I unmuted my microphone and returned to the conference call, where my team was discussing the quarterly performance of my semiconductor manufacturing holdings in Southeast Asia. The irony wasn't lost on me. My assistant, Catherine, knocked and entered with her tablet. "Your 3 o'clock is ready. The Deloitte team is here for the year-end portfolio audit. Give me 5 minutes." After the Singapore call ended, I stood at my office window looking out at the Manhattan skyline. 42 floors below, the city moved with its usual chaotic energy. From here I could see 3 buildings I owned, not that my family knew that. Not that they'd ever asked. I was 36 years old and I'd spent 14 years building an empire my family never knew existed. It started simply enough. I'd gone into academia because I genuinely loved teaching business ethics and corporate governance. Got my PhD at 25, landed a position at a decent state university. My family had been disappointed but resigned. At least I had a stable job even if it wasn't lucrative. What they didn't know was that my dissertation on corporate governance failures had caught the attention of several board members at major companies. What started as consulting work, advising boards on governance structures, helping them avoid the ethical pitfalls I'd studied, evolved into board positions. At 27 I was on my first corporate board. At 28 I was on 3. And then I started noticing patterns. Companies with poor governance weren't just ethical disasters waiting to happen. They were undervalued. The market hadn't priced in their risk yet. So I started buying them. Small positions at first, using money I'd saved from consulting fees. Then larger positions. Then controlling stakes. I'd buy struggling companies with governance problems, fix their board structures, implement proper oversight, and watch their value multiply. I reinvested everything. No fancy lifestyle, no public profile. Just acquisition after acquisition, company after company. By 30, I had a private equity fund worth $340 million. By 33, I'd crossed $1 billion in assets under management. By 35, my personal net worth had hit $2.1 billion across 17 companies in 6 countries. I still taught 2 classes a semester because I loved it. I still lived in a nice but not ostentatious apartment. I still drove a practical car. My family assumed my professor's salary was my only income and I never corrected them. But for the same reason I'd started documenting everything years ago. I wanted to see who they'd be when they thought I had nothing to offer. My brother Marcus was the golden child. MIT graduate, recruited by Nexus Systems straight out of school, now senior director of their AI division at 33. He made $380,000 a year plus stock options. By normal standards he was extraordinarily successful. By my standards he was an employee. But to our parents, Marcus was proof that they'd raised a winner. Every family gathering became a showcase for Marcus's latest achievement. His promotion. His new car. His networking dinner with someone important. And every showcase required a foil, someone to contrast against his success. That someone was me. At least Emma has job security, Dad would say when relatives asked about me. Tenure track, steady paycheck. Not exciting but stable. She'll never be wealthy, Mom would add, but she's doing meaningful work. We can't all be high achievers like Marcus. At last Thanksgiving, Marcus had brought his girlfriend Sophia, who worked in marketing at a startup. Over dinner, Sophia asked what I did. Emma's a professor, Marcus said before I could answer. Business ethics. Very theoretical stuff. Not like the real business world, but interesting in its own way. Dad laughed. That's diplomatic. Emma teaches people how business should work. Marcus actually does business. Mom patted my hand. We're proud of both our children. Success comes in different forms. The condescension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I'd said nothing. Just smiled and changed the subject. Because I'd learned that defending yourself to people who'd already decided your worth was pointless. Better to let them believe their narrative and use their underestimation as camouflage. And it had worked beautifully. While Marcus networked aggressively and posted every career win on LinkedIn, I quietly acquired companies. While my parents bragged about Marcus's stock options, I owned stocks in companies worth more than Nexus Systems. While they pitted my professor's salary, I made more in a single day from my portfolio returns than Marcus made in a year. The best part? Marcus actually worked for me in a way. Nexus Systems was one of my holdings. I'd bought a 7% stake 2 years ago when they were going through a governance crisis. I'd helped restructure their board, implement better oversight, and watched the stock triple. Marcus had no idea that part of his stock option value came from changes I'd engineered. But now his boss Jackson Reed was hosting a New Year's Eve party, and I wasn't elite enough to attend. The irony was exquisite. Catherine knocked again. Emma? The Deloitte team is getting antsy. Send them in. The year-end audit took 4 hours. My portfolio had grown 43% over the past 12 months. New acquisitions in emerging markets. 3 major exits. 2 IPOs. The Deloitte partners congratulated me on what they called exceptional strategic vision, and one of the most impressive private portfolios we've audited. After they left, I checked my schedule. Tomorrow was the Bloomberg Billionaire Index update, the annual recalculation they released on New Year's Eve. Last year I'd been ranked number 891. My team estimated I'd moved up significantly. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Mom told you about New Year's? Thanks for being cool about it. Reed's party is supposed to be insane. Elon might be there. Maybe Bezos. Can't have you talking about content ethics while I'm trying to network. Oh. I stared at the message for a long moment, then replied, have fun. Another text, this time from Mom. Just wanted to say we really do appreciate you being understanding about New Year's. Marcus worked so hard to get this invitation. We're so proud of him. I didn't reply. Instead, I called my closest friend, Diana, who ran a hedge fund and was one of the few people who knew the full truth about my wealth. They uninvited you from New Year's, she said immediately. I can hear it in your voice. Mom called. Said I'd embarrass them in front of Marcus's billionaire boss. Diana's laugh was sharp. Jackson Reed? The guy whose company you partially own? That billionaire boss. The very same. Emma, you have to tell them. This has gone beyond funny into cruel. They're being cruel to themselves, I said. I'm just letting them. For how long? Until they die never knowing their daughter is wealthier than everyone at that party combined. Maybe. I haven't decided. Diana sighed. You know what I think? I think you're waiting for the perfect moment. The moment when the truth hits so hard they can't deny it or minimize it or spin it into something that still makes Marcus look better. She wasn't wrong. The Bloomberg index drops tomorrow at midnight, I said. And you'll be on it. Probably. Definitely. You crossed $2 billion this year. You'll be listed. And the moment that list goes public, anyone can Google your name and see exactly how wealthy you are. Yes. So if your family happens to be at a party full of billionaires and tech executives when that list drops, and if someone happens to notice your name, and if someone happens to mention it to your brother or your parents, then the truth reveals itself without me having to say a word. You're diabolical, Diana said with admiration. I love it. I'm not doing anything. I'm simply existing. If they discover the truth organically, that's not my responsibility. Keep telling yourself that. What are you doing for New Year's since you're too embarrassing for the family party? Working. I have a board meeting in Tokyo on January 2nd. I'll probably just stay in and prep. You're a billionaire who's spending New Year's Eve alone working. I'm a professor who enjoys her research, I corrected. The billionaire thing is just a side effect. After we hung up, I sat in my office as the sun set over Manhattan. My phone buzzed with end-of-year messages from colleagues, board members, investors. People who knew exactly who I was and what I'd built. None of them were my family. That night, I got another text from Marcus. By the way, if anyone from the university asks, don't mention Reed's party. Don't want people to know I'm hanging with billionaires. Sounds douchey. I replied, your secret is safe. His response, you're the best. This is why you're my favorite sister. I was his only sister. New Year's Eve arrived cold and clear. I spent the morning on calls with my London and Frankfurt offices, reviewing Q4 performance across my European holdings. Afternoon was dedicated to reviewing the Tokyo board meeting materials. By evening, I'd changed into comfortable clothes, made dinner, and settled in with a book on corporate governance in emerging markets. At 10 p.m., my phone started buzzing. Catherine texted, Bloomberg index drops in 2 hours. You sitting down? Why? My contact there says you're number 673. Up from number 891. Your net worth is listed at $2.4 billion. I stared at the number. $2.4 billion. It was accurate. More accurate than I'd expected, actually. Bloomberg had done their homework. That's good work on their part, I texted back. Emma. You're about to be publicly listed as a billionaire. Anyone can Google your name and see this. Including your family. I'm aware. And they're at a party with Jackson Reed and every tech billionaire in New York. I'm aware of that too. You're really going to let this play out organically? I'm not letting anything happen. I'm simply not preventing it. At 11:30 my phone rang. Diana. Are you watching social media? She demanded. No. Should I be? Several people from the tech world are posting about being at Reed's party. I just saw a picture that includes your brother in the background. He's there, Emma. He's there with your parents, and in 90 minutes the Bloomberg list drops. Okay. Okay? That's all you have to say. What do you want me to say? I can't control when Bloomberg publishes their index. I can't control who's at what party. I'm just existing, Diana. You're impossible. I'm coming over. You shouldn't watch this alone. I'm not watching anything. I'm reading. But she came anyway, arriving at 11:45 with champagne and a laptop. If we're going to watch your family's world implode, she said, we might as well do it properly. At 11:58 we sat on my couch, her laptop open to Bloomberg's website. The current year's index was still displayed. At midnight it would refresh with the new data. Last chance to call them, Diana said. Give them a heads up. They uninvited me from New Year's because I'd embarrassed them. I think they've made their feelings clear. Fair point. At exactly midnight the page refreshed. Diana scrolled through the list. Here we are. Number 673. Imagine. Net worth, $2.4 billion. Primary sources. Private equity holdings, semiconductor manufacturing, tech governance consulting. She turned the laptop toward me. There it was. My name. My net worth. All public. For about 30 seconds nothing happened. Then my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. First text was from a board member. Congratulations on making the list. Well-deserved recognition. Then another from a business school colleague. I had no idea. Emma, this is incredible. Then another. Just saw the Bloomberg index. You've been holding out on us. They kept coming. Dozens of them. Colleagues, former students, professional contacts. All suddenly realizing that the business ethics professor they knew was also a billionaire. Diana was watching something on her laptop. Oh my God. What? Financial Twitter is going crazy. People are doing deep dives on your holdings. Someone just posted. Emma Chin has been teaching business ethics while running a $2.4 billion empire? Legend. It's got 15,000 likes already. My phone rang. Catherine. Emma, I'm getting calls from reporters. Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, Forbes. They all want interviews about how you built your wealth while maintaining an academic career. What should I tell them? Tell them I'm unavailable for comment. They're very persistent. Then tell them to email requests through the university's PR department. That should slow them down. More texts flooded in. Then my phone rang with an unknown number. I declined it. It rang again immediately. Declined again. Diana was scrolling through social media, occasionally laughing. Someone found your Rate My Professor page. The top comment is now. She gave me a B+, but she's worth $2.4 billion, so I guess she knows what she's talking about. Despite everything, I smiled. Then at 12:23 a.m., my phone rang with a number I recognized. Marcus. I looked at Diana. She nodded. I answered. Hello. Emma. His voice was strangled, almost panicked. What the fuck is happening? You'll have to be more specific. The Bloomberg Billionaire Index. Your name is on it. It says you're worth $2.4 billion. Yes, that sounds right. What do you mean that sounds right? How can you be a billionaire? You're a professor. I'm both actually. I teach 2 classes a semester and I manage a private equity portfolio. They're not mutually exclusive. I could hear noise in the background. Party sounds, people talking. Someone was yelling. This has to be a mistake, Marcus said. Bloomberg made an error. Got the wrong Emma Chin or something. It's not an error, Marcus. But you teach at a state university. You drive a Honda. You live in a 1-bedroom apartment. 2 bedrooms, actually. And yes, I do all those things. None of them prevent me from also managing a multi-billion-dollar portfolio. Mom, he yelled away from the phone. She says it's real. She says she's actually. His voice cut off. Then Mom's voice. Emma? Sweetheart? There's some confusion here. People are saying you're on some billionaire list? There must be a mistake. No mistake, Mom. But you're a professor. You make what, $85,000 a year? $127,000, actually. That's my teaching salary, yes. Then how? I don't understand. I also run a private equity fund. I've been doing it for 14 years. I buy companies, fix their governance structures and increase their value. Currently, I manage about $2.4 billion in assets. The silence on the other end was profound. Then Dad's voice. Let me talk to her. Emma. This is some kind of joke, right? You're punking us. No, Dad. Real. Has been for years. Years? How many years? I crossed my first billion about 3 years ago. I've been in private equity for 14 years. His voice cracked. You've been doing this for 14 years and never mentioned it? You never asked. Never asked? Emma, you don't wait to be asked about something like this. Why not? You never asked about my consulting work. Never asked about my board positions. Never asked where I got the money for my apartment or how I could afford to travel to 6 countries last year on a professor's salary. You just assumed I was barely getting by. Mom's voice came back. We need to talk about this. Where are you? Come to the party right now. We need to. I wasn't invited to the party, remember? I'd embarrass you in front of Marcus's billionaire boss. The noise in the background changed. Someone was talking urgently. Marcus came back on. Emma, holy shit. Jackson Reed. My boss, he just asked if I'm related to you. He knows who you are. He said you own 7% of Nexus Systems. Is that true? Yes. You own part of the company I work for? I helped restructure your board 2 years ago during that governance crisis. The stock has tripled since then. You're welcome, by the way. Your options are worth significantly more because of my work. Oh my God. His voice was faint. Everyone here knows who you are. Reed just said you're one of the most respected governance experts in private equity. Someone else said you sit on 12 corporate boards. The guy from Sequoia Capital said he's been trying to get a meeting with you for 2 years. That's accurate. And he stopped. We uninvited you. Mom told you not to come because you'd embarrass us. Yes. Because we thought you were just a professor. Yes. While you're actually wealthier than almost everyone at this party. I haven't done a full accounting of the guest list, but statistically, probably yes. I heard him talking to someone, his voice muffled. Then, Emma, Reed wants to talk to you. He's asking for your number. What should I tell him? Tell him to email my assistant. Her contact information is on my company website. Your company website? You have a company website. Sterling Governance Partners. It's been active for 12 years. 12 years. He sounded dazed. We could have Googled you at any time. Yes. Mom's voice again. Emma, sweetheart, we need to see you. Right now. We had no idea. We need to talk about this as a family. It's after midnight, Mom. I'm not traveling to the Hamptons. Then we'll come to you. We can be there in 2 hours. No. I'm going to bed. I have work tomorrow. Work? What work? It's New Year's Day. I have a board meeting in Tokyo. It's already afternoon there. A board meeting? In Tokyo? Emma, we need to understand what's happening. What's happening is that you're discovering I'm not who you thought I was. That's not my emergency, Mom. That's yours. I hung up. Diana was staring at me with wide eyes. That was brutal. That was honest. My phone immediately started ringing again. I silenced it. They're going to lose their minds, Diana said. They already have. Over the next hour, I received 43 calls from family members, 12 voicemails, and 68 text messages. I read none of them and answered none of the calls. Instead, Diana and I drank champagne and watched as social media erupted. The story was already everywhere. Secret billionaire professor. The ethics teacher who built a $2.4 billion empire in silence. Most humble billionaire on the list? Someone had found an old interview I'd done about corporate governance and posted it with the caption, "She was teaching billionaires how to run their companies while pretending to be broke." A former student tweeted, "Professor Chin gave me a C+ on my ethics final and I was mad. Now I find out she's a billionaire who actually does ethics in business. That C+ might have been generous." Diana was reading something on her laptop and laughing. Someone found Marcus's LinkedIn. He posts about his job constantly. Lots of humble brags about working with important people. And now everyone's commenting, "Does your sister teach a masterclass in humility? And your sister owns part of your company and never told you? That's next-level family dynamics." Poor Marcus. Poor Marcus nothing. He texted UL about talking about Kant while he networked. He earned this. At 2 a.m., my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost declined, but something made me answer. "Miss Chin? This is Jackson Reed. I hope I'm not calling too late." I sat up straighter. "Mr. Reed. This is unexpected. I'm at my New Year's party, and I've just had a very interesting conversation with your brother and parents. They seemed surprised to learn about your career." That's accurate. I wanted to reach out personally. First, to apologize. Your brother mentioned that you weren't invited to tonight's event because your family thought you'd be out of place among elite guests. I find that darkly ironic, given that you're one of the most accomplished people who could have been here. I appreciate that. Second, I wanted to thank you. Your work restructuring Nexus's board 2 years ago saved this company. The governance framework you implemented has been transformative. I've recommended your firm to a dozen other CEOs. I'm glad it was valuable. Third, I'm deeply embarrassed that I didn't make the connection earlier. Your brother works for me, I know you're his sister, but I never connected you to Emma Chin of Sterling Governance Partners. That's inexcusable. You had no reason to make that connection. I keep my family life and professional life separate. Clearly. May I ask why? I considered this. Because I wanted to see who they'd be when they thought I had nothing. And I wanted to build something that was entirely mine. Not connected to my family, not dependent on their approval or understanding. He was quiet for a moment. That's remarkably disciplined. And somewhat heartbreaking. It's been educational. I imagine so. Listen, I know this is inappropriate timing, but I'd love to discuss some governance challenges we're facing in our international divisions. Would you be open to a meeting in January? Have your office contact my assistant. We'll find a time. Perfect. And Ms. Chin? Your family is still here. They're quite eager to speak with you. Your mother has asked me 3 times if I can convince you to come to the party. What did you tell her? I told her that if you'd been invited initially, you might have come. But people who uninvite someone and then re-invite them when they discover their value aren't typically rewarded with compliance. I smiled. That's astute. I have good corporate governance. I learned from the best. He paused. They're learning a difficult lesson tonight. Several of my guests have made pointed comments about the irony of the situation. I didn't intend to embarrass them. You didn't. They embarrassed themselves. You simply existed and the truth came out. There's a difference. After we hung up, Diana looked at me. Jackson Reed called you personally at 2 a.m. to apologize and ask for a meeting? Apparently. Your brother must be dying. That's not my concern. But she was probably right. Marcus had spent years positioning himself as the successful sibling, the one with connections, the one who understood how real business worked. And in one night that entire narrative had collapsed. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. At 3 a.m. Diana left, making me promise to call if I needed anything. I finally looked at my messages. 47 from Marcus, ranging from panic to anger to something that looked like grief. 32 from Mom, all variations of "we need to talk" and "please call us." 18 from Dad, more subdued but equally urgent. And 1 from Sophia, Marcus's girlfriend. I always wondered why you never corrected them when they talked down to you. Now I understand. You were gathering data on who they really were. That's the most professor thing I've ever seen. I smiled and turned off my phone. The next morning I flew to Tokyo. My board meeting went well. We finalized a merger that would create a semiconductor manufacturing giant worth $1.8 billion. I returned to New York on January 3rd to find 143 missed calls from family members. I finally called my parents on January 4th. Mom answered immediately. "Emma. Thank God. We've been trying to reach you for days. I was in Tokyo for work." "Work? Right. Your board meeting." She said it like she was still processing that those words applied to me. "Emma, we need to see you. We need to talk about everything." "Okay. Can you come to dinner tonight?" "No. I have a faculty meeting." "Tomorrow then?" "I'm teaching tomorrow evening." "You're still teaching?" Dad's voice joined. They had me on speaker. "Emma, you're a billionaire. Why are you still teaching?" "Because I love teaching. My wealth doesn't change that." "But you could do anything. You could retire, travel, enjoy your money." "I enjoy teaching. I enjoy my research. I enjoy fixing broken companies. Why would I stop doing things I enjoy?" Mom's voice cracked. "We just don't understand why you never told us. 14 years, Emma. 14 years of letting us think you were struggling." "I never said I was struggling. You assumed that. But you never corrected us. You never asked. In 14 years, neither of you asked me a single substantive question about my work. You asked if I was still doing the teaching thing, or if I'd thought about a real career. You never asked what companies I consulted for, what boards I sat on, what my research actually involved. You just assumed I was barely scraping by, and that assumption was enough." The silence stretched out. Finally, Dad spoke. "We failed you." "Yes," I said simply. "You did. Can we fix this?" Mom asked. Can we start over?" "I don't know. That depends on whether you can respect me when I'm not performing success for you. Whether you can value me when I'm not exceeding your expectations in ways you understand." "Of course we can." "Can you though? Because right now you're interested in me because I'm a billionaire. Because I embarrassed you at Marcus's boss's party. Because I'm suddenly valuable in ways you recognize. But I'm the same person I was on December 30th, when you uninvited me from New Year's. The only thing that changed is your perception." "That's not fair," Dad said. "We're your parents. We love you. Do you love the version of me that fits your narrative? Because when I didn't fit that narrative, when I was just a professor who didn't make you proud, you uninvited me from family events. You dismissed my career. You used me as a contrast to make Marcus look better. We never meant," Mom started. "Intent doesn't matter, Mom. Impact does. That's something I teach in business ethics. You can't judge an action solely by the intent behind it. You have to look at the consequences." Marcus's voice joined. "Emma, I'm here too. I need to apologize. For everything. For every time I introduced you as just a professor. For every time I talked over you at family dinners. For that text about Kant. For not inviting you to New Year's. I appreciate that. Reed asked me yesterday if I knew you owned part of Nexus. I had to tell him no. I had no idea my sister was a major shareholder in the company I work for. Do you know how that felt? I imagine it felt humiliating. It did. And I earned that humiliation. Every bit of it. Yes, you did. Can I ask you something?" His voice was quiet. "Why did you let it go on so long? You could have corrected us years ago. One conversation and we would have known. Why wait until it exploded publicly? I thought carefully about my answer. Because I needed to see who you all were when you thought I had nothing to offer. I needed to see if your love and respect were conditional on success. And I needed to build something that was completely separate from this family, something you couldn't claim credit for or diminish. And now you know, he said. Our love was conditional. Our respect was transactional. Yes. Mom was crying. What do we do now? How do we fix this? You start by understanding that you can't fix 14 years of dismissal with an apology. You start by recognizing that the daughter you pitted was succeeding beyond anything you could imagine. And you start by asking yourselves why you valued Marcus's $380,000 salary more than my passion for teaching, without ever bothering to look beneath the surface. We're so sorry, Dad said. We're so sorry. I know. But sorry doesn't erase the damage. Sorry doesn't change the fact that you uninvited me from New Year's because I'd embarrass you. Sorry doesn't change the fact that you spent years making me the family disappointment. What can we do? Mom asked desperately. Tell us what to do. I don't know yet. Right now I need space. I need to decide if I want to rebuild a relationship with people who only valued me when they discovered my net worth. That's not, Marcus started. Yes it is. Be honest. If Bloomberg hadn't published that list, if you'd never found out about my wealth, would any of you be calling me right now? Would you have invited me to Easter? To the next family wedding? Or would I still be the disappointing daughter who chose academia over success? None of them answered. That's what I thought, I said quietly. I'll be in touch when I'm ready. Until then I need space. I hung up before they could respond. 2 weeks later I was in my office when Catherine buzzed. Emma, you have a visitor. She says she's your mother and she's not leaving until you see her. I sighed. Send her in. Mom looked smaller, somehow older. She sat across from my desk and looked around at the office. The skyline view, the expensive art, the subtle markers of serious wealth. I've never seen where you work, she said quietly. You never asked. I know. She twisted her hands. Emma, I've spent the last 2 weeks thinking about everything. Reading about your career. Going through old conversations. And I've realized something terrible. What's that? You told us. Not directly, but you tried. 3 years ago you mentioned you'd bought a new apartment. I said, how nice, professors must get good mortgages. You said, actually I paid cash. I said, must have been a small place, and changed the subject. You tried to tell me and I didn't listen. I remembered that conversation. 5 years ago, she continued, you mentioned you were flying to Singapore for work. I said, what, some academic conference? You said, board meeting actually. I laughed and said, board meeting, how fancy, like it was a joke. You tried to tell me and I mocked you. I remember. 7 years ago, you told your father you'd been asked to join a corporate board. He said, they must be desperate if they're asking professors. You said, it's a Fortune 500 company. He said, well, every board needs someone to take notes. And you just stopped trying to tell us. Tears were running down her face now. We didn't just fail to ask, Emma. We actively prevented you from telling us. Every time you tried to share something about your real career, we dismissed it. We made it clear we weren't interested in anything that didn't fit our narrative. Yes, I said. You did. I don't expect you to forgive us. I don't expect you to want a relationship with us. I just needed you to know that I finally understand what we did. We didn't just ignore your success. We punished you for trying to share it. She stood to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I've been reading everything I can find about your work. The companies you've saved. The boards you've restructured. The way you've changed how corporations think about governance. You've done more to make business ethical than most people do in 10 lifetimes. Thank you. I'm proud of you. I know that means nothing now, but I am. It doesn't mean nothing, I said carefully. It's just complicated. I understand. She walked to the door, then turned back. Marcus asked me to tell you something. He's been going through therapy. Dealing with some things about how he built his identity around being the successful sibling. He wanted you to know he's working on it. That's good. And your father is reading your published papers. He says he doesn't understand half of it, but he's trying. That's good too. After she left, I sat at my desk for a long time thinking. 3 months later, I had coffee with Marcus. He looked different. Less polished, more genuine. I quit Nexus, he said. What? Why? Because I realized I was working there partially to compete with a sister who wasn't competing with me. Because I was building my identity around being the successful one, and that foundation was rotten. I needed to figure out who I am when I'm not being compared to you. Where are you working now? A non-profit, actually. Healthcare advocacy. The pay is terrible. The work is meaningful. I'm terrible at it so far, but I'm learning. I smiled. That's brave. It's overdue. He paused. I also wanted to tell you something. Reed, Jackson Reed, he offered me a promotion. More money, more prestige. And I realized he was offering it because of you. Because I'm your brother. Because he wants access to you and thinks promoting me will help. What did you say? I said no. I told him that if he wants to work with you, he should approach you directly. That I wasn't going to use our relationship as a professional asset. He looked at me. I've spent years diminishing you to elevate myself. I'm done with that. I appreciate that. Can we? He struggled with the words. Can we be siblings again? Real siblings, not competitors. I'd like that, I said. But it's going to take time. I understand. I've got time. 6 months after the Bloomberg list dropped, my family and I met for dinner. Not at their house, not at a fancy restaurant, but at a small Italian place near my apartment. We talked carefully, honestly. They asked real questions about my work. I asked about theirs. We didn't pretend the past 14 years hadn't happened. We didn't pretend everything was fine. But we started to rebuild. Mom asked what had finally made me successful. I corrected her. Not what made me successful. What made you finally see that I'd been successful all along? She nodded, accepting the correction. Dad asked if I resented them. I told him the truth, sometimes. But mostly I'm grateful. You taught me that my worth isn't dependent on external validation. You taught me to build things quietly and let the work speak for itself. You taught me that being underestimated is an advantage. Those are terrible lessons for parents to teach, he said quietly. Maybe. But I learned them well. A year after New Year's Eve, I was giving a guest lecture at Harvard Business School. The topic was corporate governance, but someone asked about my family. I hear you built your entire career in secret from your family. Is that true? Not secret, I corrected. I just didn't advertise. There's a difference. But why? Most people want recognition from their families. I thought carefully. Because I wanted to see who they'd be when they thought I had nothing. I wanted to know if their love was conditional. And I wanted to build something that was entirely mine, not connected to family expectations, not dependent on their approval. And what did you learn? I learned that most people's love is more conditional than they'd like to admit. I learned that being underestimated is a strategic advantage. And I learned that the only validation that matters is the value you create. Do you regret how it happened? The public discovery? No. If I'd told them privately, they could have controlled the narrative. They could have minimized it or spun it somehow. The public discovery meant they had to confront the full reality all at once. No filter, no spin. That seems harsh. Maybe. But 14 years of dismissal was harsh too. Sometimes the truth needs to hit hard enough that it can't be denied. The student nodded slowly. So you built a $2.4 billion empire partly to prove a point to your family? No, I corrected. I built it because I'm good at identifying value others miss. The fact that my family missed my value for 14 years. That was just data. Useful data, but not the motivation. After the lecture, I checked my phone. A text from Mom. Watched your Harvard lecture online. You were brilliant. Dad and I are so proud. I smiled and replied, thank you. Have dinner next week? We'd love that. Another text from Marcus. Your lecture was incredible. Also, I just got promoted at the nonprofit. Turns out I'm pretty good at this when I'm not trying to compete with you. Congratulations. That's well deserved. Thanks, Emma. Thank you for not giving up on us completely. We didn't deserve your patience. We're family. We're learning. As I walked through Harvard Yard back to my hotel, I thought about that New Year's Eve 14 months ago. The moment the Bloomberg list dropped. The moment my phone exploded. The moment my family's narrative shattered. People asked if I'd planned it. If I'd orchestrated the public reveal. The truth was simpler. I'd just lived my life. Built my companies. Taught my classes. The Bloomberg list was going to publish regardless. My family was going to be at that party regardless. The collision was inevitable. I hadn't engineered their humiliation. I'd simply stopped protecting them from reality. And reality, as I teach in my business ethics classes, has a way of making itself known eventually. You can ignore it, dismiss it, pretend it doesn't exist. But eventually the truth emerges. Sometimes at midnight on New Year's Eve. Sometimes in front of your billionaire boss. Sometimes in the form of a Bloomberg ranking that proves the daughter you dismissed is wealthier than everyone at the party combined. The truth doesn't need revenge. It needs time. And I'd given it 14 years. That was enough.